Good morning, friends. Happy Thursday. Today is April the 2nd. I am now coming to you from my front yard. Today, I wanted to check in with you guys and see how you're doing. I hope that you are doing okay with the V words that we've been working on, and also the geometry math that we've been doing. Um, I enjoy geometry, and I hope that you're enjoying the shapes too and learning about the sides and the vertices from the work you guys have been sending in. It seems to me that you guys are doing really well with that. So I'm proud of you for that. You guys are working so hard to keep up on everything, and it makes me so excited to open up my emails and see all the good work that you guys are completing at home with your families. And I know it's been tough not being at school. I miss being at school so much, but you guys are continuing to do such a great job learning from home, and your families are doing a wonderful job sending in the messages. I wanted to update you guys on the thank you letters that you guys wrote to the community workers and helpers for our social studies unit. I was so incredibly proud of all of you for the not just your pictures, your good writing, but also the messages that you sent and the thoughtfulness that you had thinking about the nurses and the doctors, the firefighters, the police officers, um, the store workers, the garbage men, the mailmen, everyone who is still, and teachers too. Thank you um, to those of you who thanked me for that. But um, there's so many people who are continuing to go to work and do what they need to do for our communities at this time, and I've been thinking a lot about them and hoping that they're staying safe and well, and I know you are too. And your letters were so powerful and so meaningful and so kind and thoughtful, and so I just had this idea that someone should see these letters besides your family and besides myself and Mr. Knipe. I showed Mr. Knipe too. He was so amazed with you guys, as he always is. But um, I want you to know that I also sent them to Miss Berlin so she could see them. And she said, "Wow, you guys are doing such great work and you're so smart." So she was really thrilled too. But then I thought, you know what? I think community people should see your letters too. So I contacted the editor for the Cerritos Community News and sent him a little brief message of what we've been doing, and also some of your pictures, your letters. I sent them to him, and he said, "Wow, I would love to write a story and put these pictures in the newspaper." Can you believe it? You guys are going to be real authors. Your writing, your notes, your letters that you wrote for the community members, they're going to go in the newspaper, guys. I am so excited for you. So, what we need to do is we need to have your parents send the picture by email to Brian Hughes. He's the editor, and I will give your parents the email link today. Um, I tried to send the pictures myself, but because of the submission and the transmission over and over, the quality of the images went down. So he said if he was to print them in the newspaper, they'd be kind of blurry. So I need you to ask your parents to please email the photographs of your letters to him, and I will send you the email today in our message this morning. Oops, Sadie. People aren't allowed to drive by my house because she barks. But today for science, let's skip from social studies to science. We need to get back into our life science unit where we've been talking about living and non-living things. And I wanted to share with you that I went to Home Depot yesterday and I purchased two identical plants. They are the same size, they're the same type of plant. And I wanted to do a science experiment with them today. So these are called lobelias, and they're a little green plant, and they have my favorite color flower. Can you see that? It's like a purplish flower. But we're going to do a science experiment with these today, and I want to show you some of the tools I'm going to be using. So for this experiment, we're supposed to measure, and I don't have the Unifix cubes that this lesson calls for, so I went and bought 2 matching sticks. So we're going to use these sticks to measure and compare the size of the plants. I have some water because we need to give our plants some water to survive. I have a measuring cup because I want to make sure when you're doing science, you have to make sure that the conditions are the same. So that when you're comparing what happens, the outcome, you know that one plant didn't have an advantage over another plant, so to speak. So I'll talk with you about that in a minute. And then I also have a marker so that we can measure these plants. So let's get started. The first thing I want to do is I want to measure these plants first. That's what I'm going to do. So this is the first plant. And I'm going to take my stick here and I'm going to write, we'll call this plant number 1. Okay, can you see that? I just wrote plant number 1. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure how tall plant number 1 is. And measurement is going to be the math unit that we get into after geometry. So this is like a little teaser for measurement. So here's my plant number 1 measure stick, and here's, I'll call this one plant number 1. I better, just as a scientist, you have to label things, so I better write here, plant number 1. So can you see that? This is plant number 1. And what we'll do when we're going to measure plant number 1 is I'm going to take my stick, and when I'm measuring, I have to make sure that when I start my measurement, I put the bottom of my stick at the bottom of my plant. So I am going to line it up. Can you see that? I'm trying to make sure my stick goes all the way to the bottom. You see that? I don't want it to be like this because then there's all this empty space down here. And I don't want it to go like this because then there's all this space here that hasn't been measured. So I want to line it up with the bottom of my plant, my measuring stick, and I'm going to hold this as best as I can, and I'm going to go to the top of my growth. Can you see that? So here's my tallest plant right here. So I'm just going to go straight across, and I'm going to mark a line on my stick right about here. Can you see that? Does that look like it measures about that tall? And then what I'll do is I'll wrap this little line around the front so we can see it on the front. It's amazing what you can come up with when you're not in your classroom. Okay, so here's plant number 1, and plant number 1 measures to be about this tall. And I'm not measuring the cup. Okay, here's where the pot ends. I'm measuring where the plant growth is. So I'm going to the tallest part of the green part of the plant to measure that way. Okay, so now let me do the same thing on plant number 2. Here's my measuring stick for plant number 2. Here's plant number 2's measuring stick. And here is plant number 2. I tried really hard yesterday at the store to make sure that these plants were as close to the same as I could get size-wise. So here's plant number 2, here's plant number 2 measuring stick, and again I'm going to do the same exact thing that I did before to measure the height of this one. I'm going to line it up on the bottom. Ooh, you can see some of the roots. You see that? We're going to be talking about roots in plants next week, but at the bottom of my cup I see some roots poking out the bottom. Do you see that? Amazing. Let's see this other one. Oh, yep, same thing. Same thing. See that? Okay. Sorry, I digress. Okay, let me go back here to measuring just to see. Okay, so I'm going to line it up again on the bottom. And again, I'm not going to measure just the cup itself. I'm going to go to the top of the plant where the plant stops growing. It looks like this is the tallest part of the plant. I'm going to go across and I'm just going to measure Make a little line right here. Does that look like it's about the right height? And then I'm going to come around here to the front and just continue the line on the front so you can see that. Okay, now let's check out if our plants are the same. Ooh, they're pretty close. When I went to the store, I did a pretty good job. It's not perfect, but it's close enough that there you can see plant number 1 is this tall and plant number 2 is this tall. So they're pretty close. And again, I'm lining up the bottoms. When I measure, I have to make sure that I line up the bottoms. Okay, next step is I'm going to water these plants, and I want to make sure that the conditions are same for the plants. Let me move my pillows. I want to make sure that I have the same amount of water for both plants, so that's why I have my measuring cup here. It's a half a cup of water, so I'm just pouring in half a cup of water for plant number, let's see which, okay, let me get plant number 1. Guess it doesn't matter, but alright, here's plant number 1, and here's the water. I'm just going to pour it in, and you'll see the water is going to leak out the bottom. Plants need to be in pots where there's holes on the bottom because you want to make sure that you don't flood or give your plant too much water. So when you pour the water in, the plant takes what it needs into the soil and the rest drains out the bottom. So there's plant number 1's drink of water. And here is plant number 2's drink of water. I'm using the same half a cup of water, and I'm going to pour it in. Okay, and again, it's going to drip the extra water out the bottom so that the plant doesn't get flooded. Okay, now here's what I'm going to do for our science experiment. I'm going to take plant number 1 and plant number 2, and I'm going to put one of them in the sun to keep growing, and I'm going to put the other one inside a dark cabinet inside my house. Because I think in science you will realize that living things, plants, need sunlight to grow, and so we're going to put plant number 2, we're going to leave plant number 2 in the sun outside on my patio out front. Plant number 2, I'm going to put in a dark cabinet and see what happens to the growth of the plant. Will it continue to grow in a dark cabinet? Will it grow taller? Will it get smaller? Will it die? I hope not. But we're going to leave it in the dark cabinet for 5 days and see what happens. Plant number 2, we're going to leave out in the sun for 5 days and see what happens. And so today is Thursday, so let's count forward. We'll go Thursday as day 1, so we'll go Thursday. What comes after Thursday? Friday will be day 2. After Friday comes Saturday. Saturday will be day 3. After Saturday comes Sunday. Sunday will be day 4. And then after Sunday comes Monday. Yep, you guys are right. I knew you knew your days. So we've got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. When we get back together on Monday, we're going to check the plants and we're going to see what happened to the one in the sun, what happened to the one in the dark cabinet, and then we're going to measure them and see what happens with the growth, what happens with the plants. So let me put, while I have you with me right now, I'll put plant number 2, we'll put plant number 2 in the sun right now. So come with me. I'll put plant number 2 right over here on my sunny patio. We'll leave that right here for now. And then I'm going to put the plant number 1 in a dark cabinet in my room.